Hey guys, and welcome to the next PvP that I was talking about in the last video. This is the follow-up, and by the way, here's the probe. Go back and check that out to see when I pull the probe, but regardless, I quickly got caught off track of what I wanted to be talking about. This is the follow-up to the last build. It's going to be the same opening, but we're going to see what develops afterwards, and yeah, so this is GSL Antigua Shipyard. This was in the Play Him tournament. I actually just played this game, and the reason why I know exactly where he spawned is because this is cross-spawn only. If you choose to do this build on this map, obviously you want to know where your opponent spawns, and also the pylon placement should be right here. Now, one thing to note while I get a drink is on this particular map, this is basically the only map where you have to do this. I built this pylon on 9 supply, and then I'm going to build a probe, as we can see in the production tab, and then I'm going to build the gateway. The reason for that is because it just takes so much time for your slow probe to get all the way back over here. You could probably even make a second probe, but as you can see, the minerals is pretty well timed out, so yeah. And the reason why it's important to have your pylon here isn't because I wish I could show you the pylon field. Let's see, hold on. No, I can't do it. Okay, basically, the reason why you put it here is because you can fit another gateway right here. And so this is it's important because if your opponent sees you doing this and he pulls workers to kill your gateway, you actually, holy crap, you actually want to. That is really close. You want to be able to put another gateway down while this one's dying. And the reason isn't because so you can guarantee get a zealot out. It's because you want to be able to build a cybernetics core. Because if you lose this gateway and you can't build a cyber, you're sort of screwed. And right now you see me scouting for a 2-gate because I sort of feel like that could catch me off guard. And because I'm scouting for a 2-gate, I don't actually have to scout with this worker immediately. But I do anyway, so don't ask me why. Just to feel safe, basically, I suppose. But because he sees this worker, he should assume something's going on, especially since it came from over here. But I was actually talking to him after the game, and he did say he basically scouted everywhere except right here. So he's feeling pretty confident that I'm not doing anything cheesy. But he was dead wrong. Because I see this assimilator, essentially, if he knew something was up, he would cancel this. But if he was to react perfectly, he would not cancel that, but we'll get to that later. Now, as I said in the last video, we're going to be more focused on this aspect of the game, as well as a different response from my opponent. So we can see the zealots being chronoed out. That's something you should always do. The pylon, you either want to build on 14 or 15 supply, and I typically like to hide it. And the reason for that is if he comes in here and scouts and sees nothing, if he hadn't already seen this, he's going to know something's going on, not up. And that's going to sort of give him incentive to react to basically more than what I'm actually doing, if that makes sense. And the other thing to keep in mind while macroing at home and microing your zealot is to build a cybernetics core as soon as you can. As soon as this pylon comes up, you should be building a cyber, and there it goes. And as soon as you can, build a assimilator. And instead of building an assimilator, I'm going to delay it for a little bit so I can build another zealot. Now, this is where the build will differ from game to game. If your opponent either reacts perfectly or if he overreacts, you only want one zealot. Last game we actually saw I got 2 zealots and that worked out fine. 1 zealot in that situation would have been okay as well. But the last game was sort of a special circumstance because my opponent overreacted, but he did it late, so I could actually get away with making another zealot. And this might sound confusing, or it might make perfect sense, but basically when you're in the game, you'll get a sense of, okay, I can get away with one more zealot because he can't actually defend it, or okay, the first zealot will actually be contested, so there's no way I should make another one. It'll basically be pretty simple. It'll be like second nature, basically. But after you're done producing zealots, you want to make an assimilator. You shouldn't be making any more probes. If you look at the production tab, the next thing I'll make is an assimilator. The reason for that is because you want to be able to get warp gate research as soon as you possibly can, or stalkers. It really depends on what your opponent is doing. Because if he were to respond with a 2-gate, I want to be able to defend that with stalkers. If he were to Or I could just get a warp gate research as well because he will have his delayed. Now, keep in mind the cybernetics cores are essentially identical, which is a little strange since I spent more money on this attack. But I suppose I did cut a few probes, and right now we see the Zealot being a complete tard and not doing anything. I actually probably should have focused his Zealot, but never mind that. As I said, I was going to focus on this. So here we see the probe count. If you're looking at the production tab, I guess I made a couple while that was going on. Essentially, after your cyber's done, or actually, you basically want to start these next two gateways when you can afford them, but you also want to be sprinkling in probes here or there. We can even see a chrono boost going down. This is nothing that's going to be like your ABCs, alright? It's not going to be the same every game. It's going to depend on what your opponent's doing and also how many zealots you've made and what you can afford in general. Now, I want to look at the probe count real quick. It's 18 to 14, so I have a big lead in that. Warp gate research is, I've started mine. He has a ton of gas, actually, but he has not started his, but he could have. I think that's the important thing to realize. And I think he's just now going to see this gateway. So he might still think this is a 2-gate going on. That's why he's chronoing out a Zealot and not probes. When in reality, it is not a 2-gate. And we're going to, as you can see in the replay timer, this game does come to a close soon. But essentially, if your opponent underreacts, you can make more Zealots and do damage that way. I've killed 6 workers. That's pretty good for 2 Zealots. And it's forced out more Zealots from him that he wouldn't have wanted to make. And it's given me a probe lead, as killing workers often does. Now, what does all of this mean? In a typical game, your opponent will not just quit, as we're about to see Cloud do. And I just realized I didn't introduce the players like I didn't last game, but regardless, so this does put you in a little bit of a lead, and I don't want you guys to think that this 1-gate proxy is the end-all be-all PvP strategy just because I'm showing you 2 games where it wins. Essentially, it's designed to give you a little bit of a lead. Either that gives you a little bit of a lead in the warp gate research, or it gives you a little bit of a lead in killing his workers and not having a better worker count. And having a 4 worker count at this stage in the game is pretty huge. So definitely don't underestimate that. However, your follow-up, oftentimes when your opponent doesn't have his tech delayed but has their economy delayed, they will try to respond by doing a 4-gate or something. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, in the last game we saw, I did a 4-gate and I overran my opponent. In this particular game, a 4-gate wouldn't really be as effective because he can basically play somewhat standard, just with a lesser economy. So a 4-gate still could work, but instead I would say just fall back and do whatever build you want to do. So on Antigua Shipyard, my personal belief is if you don't go Blink Stalkers, you're probably going to lose if your opponent does. That's how I see this particular map. But on other maps, it might be better to go Phoenix, might be better to go for maybe a 2-gate Robo Expand, just whatever you feel comfortable with. My main point, though, is do not tech or do not expo too quickly, because there's a pretty likely chance that your opponent will try to counterattack you and just go all in. So play it safe, use your lead to your advantage, and don't get greedy. And I'm actually going to show you guys the exact gateway timing, just so you guys have a better understanding for that, because I know I didn't really touch on that too much. Normally how this build pans out, by the way, is I'll make 1 Zealot, and then see my pylons going down at 14, maybe make a probe or 2, because I'm only going to make 1 Zealot, then make a cyber, then make a gas, and then go back to making a couple probes, and we're going to see the gateway timing in a second. So, also, another thing to consider is that right now, I'm nowhere close to being supply blocked, but if you were to kill this pylon, I would be supply blocked. So, so just account for that. If your opponent is gonna most likely your opponent will go for the pylon first, not the gateway. But if they're feeling pressured, they might just kill the gateway since it's sitting in their base anyway. But we see the first gateway going down after the cyber is finished. You can make this during the cyber core is being produced. The thing you've got to realize, though, is you're not going to have gas for a stalker and warp gate research, you know, when the cyber comes up. So it's okay for these to be a little bit delayed. the last thing I sort of want to say before I bring this video to a close is, if your opponent does respond with a 2-gate, get your own gateways a little bit faster. And something you could also do, I guess, is make an extra zealot out of your gateway and just run it back home. Just use it for defense, and that could definitely help. So if your micro isn't perfect, if it isn't your strong suit, then maybe get one more zealot from this gateway. That way you're not completely waiting on these two. So, but yeah, my voice is dying, is giving out on me pretty soon, and Cloud GG's after he sees what's going on in my base. And we can see the unit count. I still had that 4 probe lead, I had the tech lead, I had the production lead, so. And my second gas was coming up. Just don't rush the second gas, don't rush your tech, don't rush your expo. And if you get behind after doing this, oh, actually there is one more thing I want to mention. I don't think I'm going to make a whole video just to talk about this, so I'll mention it right now. Although this is a strategy you may not have seen before, there is still a perfect way and the best way to respond to it from your opponent's standpoint. And basically, in doing so, they will stay on one gateway, continue getting their cybernetics core when they can afford it, but also just matching you in zealot production. So, although your opponent, even if he scouts this early on, won't know if it's a 2-gate or a 1-gate, they still can respond perfectly, and you can go toe-to-toe with them with producing zealots, but really there's not a whole lot you can accomplish when they can just pull probes off if they ever need to. And if they do respond perfectly, it will put you behind, I'm not going to lie. In the last video I mentioned, 80% of the time you will have a lead coming away from this. I would say about 80% of the time. And the reason I lose with this build, or the most frequent reason I lose, is that I just get too greedy with my tech. I try to tech up too fast, and then they just come with a 4-gate and kill me. So be aware of that. And also, I don't know, going back in with the probe to scout for 4-gate is possibly, you know, viable. So don't rule that out in case you're worried. But yeah, so now I will say it. Go try this out on ladder, guys. Hopefully I'll remember to put the build order in the description of at least one of these videos, probably both. It's pretty simple. I mean, you build your first worker, and as soon as the game starts, basically, if this will load, you'll see right here. I'm gonna split like a baller, and then as soon as one of these probes comes back with the minerals, I'll pull it off and go to wherever I want to build the pylon. You can even see me clicking right there. Then you build the pylon at 9 or 10 supply, basically whenever you have 100 minerals, and then you build the gateway at that same supply, unless it's a map like Antigua Shipyard, and you're only going to have this problem on maps like Antigua when you know it's cross-spawn, because on ladder it's not cross-spawn because it's dumb. And that is my opinion on that. So, pretty simple. Pylon, next pylon goes at 14 or 15, and anyway, I'll put this in the description. This is dragging on too long. I don't even know how long it's been going on for, but as always, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully more PvP builds coming out in the near future. As I will say though, basically I only go all in PvP. So I might not be the best person to learn from, but if you want to win and if you want to have some cool and creative builds that you can definitely put your own spin on. You know, I show all of my builds, you know, like it's an X and O thing, you know, it's do this here, you know, make X amount of stalkers or whatever. I think it's sort of like the idea of the build that matters, not so much doing it exactly, you know, as I draw it out. So putting your own spin on stuff is definitely an option. Yeah. So thanks for watching. Good luck on ladder, guys. And peace out.